Hello and welcome to the Art and Science of Mediumship. I'm your host, Lauren Robertson, and today I am truly thrilled to introduce you to our guest, who is Jeffrey Mishlove PhD. Jeffrey Mishlove is the winner of the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies Essay Prize. He is also host and producer of the New Thinking Aloud channel, and he's the author of The Roots of Consciousness, Psi Development Systems, Thinking Aloud, and the PK Man. I personally love Jeffrey Mishlove and find him to be such a warm and knowledgeable human being in the subject of mediumship and related fields in parapsychology, and I just know you're going to love this interview. We talk about how Jeffrey Mishlove got into parapsychology and the very special degree that he holds in that field. We talk about the relationship between consciousness and the brain and what the current paradigm gets wrong about it. And we talk about Jeffrey Mishlove's favourite karaoke song to belt out of a Saturday evening, along with many other things besides. So I really hope that you will join us for this amazing interview. Make yourself a cuppa, and thanks so much for being here with us. Enjoy. Hi Jeff, thanks for joining us on the Art and Science of Mediumship.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Lauren.
And you likewise. So you have got a totally unique academic qualification when it comes to parapsychology. Can you tell us what makes your qualification unique and how you came to hold that qualification?
Yeah, I think I have the only accredited doctoral degree in the world in which the diploma actually says parapsychology. And that's because it was done back in 1980 is when I graduated. It was through an individual interdisciplinary doctoral program that I actually created just for myself at the University of California.
And how did your interest in that work begin?
How did I address
your interest in that work? So your interest in parapsychology.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you there. I was interested in parapsychology going back to my undergraduate years. I did ESP experiments as an undergraduate, but as a graduate student, I started out in criminology. If you had known me in 1972, you would have seen a person doing field work at San Quentin Prison in the psychiatric unit, conducting group therapy sessions with murderers and rapists. And it was at that time that I first had I guess I'd have to call it an encounter with the afterlife. And truly, looking back now, 50 years, it was the most powerful dream I have ever had in my life. Occurred in March of 1972 when my great uncle Harry appeared to me in the dream, and it was like a soul-to-soul connection. I woke up from that dream and I was just sobbing, tears of joy, and singing at the same time, a very sacred song from the Jewish religion. And I wrote home, I said to my parents, "How's Uncle Harry? I had a dream about him." And my mother called me immediately because it seems as if the moment I had that dream was actually the moment that he died, almost exactly, as best as we can tell, because of the time difference between me in California and Uncle Harry in Wisconsin. I'm sleeping late and he's getting up early, going to a religious service, coming home, sitting down in his chair around 9:30 in the morning and dying while I'm still asleep in bed.
Well, I'm sorry for the loss of your Uncle Harry, but that dream is truly amazing. I've had dreams like that as well about loved ones that have passed to the spirit world. And for me, they have a very different quality than just a regular dream, even though a regular dream may be inspiring or laden with meaning. There's a different quality to it. Did you have that experience where this dream seemed to have a different quality to it than your regular dream state?
Well, yes, of course. As I say, it's the most powerful dream I've ever had in my entire life. And now I have had other dreams in which deceased friends or relatives would visit me in the dream, and I think they do have a different quality. When you're in the dream, you know that this is a real visitation. You're not just dealing with a dream figure.
And what was that like for you? Like, obviously, you got the evidence afterwards that your uncle had passed concurrently with your dream. But what was it in the moment for you, the experiential aspect that was so powerful? Are you able to put your finger on it or put it into words?
Well, yeah, I remember it quite vividly, even 50 years later. Uncle Harry had a lot to say to me about male-female relationships, as a matter of fact. And of course, he came from a different generation. He didn't believe in the equality of the sexes, is something I strongly believe in. And so he was critical of me, but that all seems trivial compared to the soul-to-soul connection, the very idea that he was reaching out to me. That was the important part. The dream included, for example, imagery of the yin yang, which has become a very important symbol to me now. But it made me wonder, Uncle Harry, who was an Orthodox Jewish man, maybe the two of us shared a past life in ancient China, for all I know.
That's beautiful. And have you had any experiences with Uncle Harry since then?
No, none. But I have learned that a number of his other relatives, I think two different grandchildren, also had communications from him around the time of his death.
And that adds to the evidence in a way, because the concurrence of events where there was no conferring about the event, adds to the sense that there's another input or another entity or another being that's sort of inputting into the situation when it's not being discussed among you. That's really special. I'm so glad that you had that experience and that it set you off on this path that we have all benefited very much from. So you are an absolutely prolific author, but you're an even more prolific interviewer. So if one of our listeners here on the Art and Science of Mediumship were to get to know you for the first time through one of your books and through one of your interviews on New Thinking Aloud, which of your own books would you choose and which interview would you choose for people to get to know you by?
Well, in a way, my very first book is, it was very special for me. I was in such a high state just writing it. I enjoyed writing every page of that book. And it's called The Roots of Consciousness. It came out originally in 1975. It's been through two subsequent editions. And at this point, I've actually put the whole book up on the internet. It's available for people for free.
I will definitely link that along with all of your other bits and pieces, your essays and your websites and different things with this interview as well. Thank you for that. So what about in terms of your interviews on Thinking Aloud or New Thinking Aloud? Is there any one where you think this one interview will get people between the eyes? This will be the one that people go, I need to know more. I need to binge watch the rest of them. What's your favourite one?
Well, that's so hard. My favorite one is always the one I'm doing at the moment. Right. You have been a guest on New Thinking Aloud yourself. We did a fine interview. You were interviewed actually by Emmy Vadnais, who works with me, and I thought that was a fabulous interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And what about any others? Is there anybody else that stands out to you as having been particularly impressive?
Well, okay. There was an interview released about a month ago, and it's gone viral, at least by my standards.
Wow.
It's called Remote Viewing the Year 2060 with Stefan Schwartz. And He's worked with hundreds of remote viewers, asking them to look into the future and describe the years. He did 2050, and then now a follow-up 2060. And that interview is going gangbusters. It's having more views in a shorter period of time, I think, than any other interview I've ever done. So what it says to me is that people are very concerned about the future.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a good summation of why people would be interested in it, but I'll definitely link that one as well. And you've had some of the biggest names in parapsychological research and people who've had really anomalous or atypical consciousness experiences. People who, if they know anything at all about the big authors in parapsychological research, they will probably be able to find them on your channel, right?
That's generally true, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out. It's really incredible. So I've read that one of your many passions is karaoke.
Yeah.
And I wonder what your go-to karaoke song is.
Well, it depends on my mood, I think.
Okay, give us the greatest hits then, top three.
You know, I love rock and roll. I love blues music, and I like to sing. So I have a number of favorites.
Go on, give us one. You don't have to sing it; just name it.
Well, let's see. Yeah. Mustang Sally is an old favorite of mine, for example.
Absolute classic.
Yeah.
Classic
Songs
choice.
like that appeal to me a lot.
Yes, I also love to sing and love karaoke. I'm actually getting married next month, and my hen party is a private karaoke room with dinner and cocktails. We're going to be singing our lungs out. So it was lovely to see a fellow karaoke fan when I was reading up a little bit about you, Jeff. So that's good to know.
Oh.
I'll belt out some Mustang Sally for you at my hen party.
Well, if you go to the New Thinking Aloud channel, I've actually recorded a number of songs.
I will link those below as well. I'm sure everybody will enjoy that. So you are the winner of the BIX essay contest. Congratulations, very well deserved. So can you tell us a little bit about the competition and what has changed for you in New Thinking Aloud since your win, if anything?
Well, it certainly was a high-profile event within the community of people who are interested in life after death and parapsychology. And of course, it was a big contest. There were, I think, over 1,000 people applied to enter, but you had to meet certain standards even to be eligible. So, as I recall, over 200 essays were submitted in the competition. I'm of the opinion that they were all really good. There are many, many essays, and I'm guessing including your own, that didn't necessarily win awards, but many of them have been published and are extremely informative and well written. So I think it's been a big boost for the whole community of people interested in survival after death.
Yes, I do as well. And I noticed that after your win, you were getting a lot of, obviously, podcast requests and interview requests and different things. And I wasn't aware of New Thinking Aloud until you won the essay contest. And so I'm wondering if it's helped your profile at all, or the profile of the work that you've specifically done, which is a lot of work. It's like a magnum opus of this subject matter on video. Has it helped?
Well, sure. Our viewership has jumped up a lot since winning the competition, so that's been helpful. And subsequently, I joined the board of directors of the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies, and I know there are some big plans to, for example, sponsor research in this area.
Are you at liberty to say any more about those plans, or?
Well, there will be an announcement made on September 1st, as I recall, at the International Association of Near-Death Studies. There will be a formal announcement at that time. So I don't want to jump the gun on that.
I understand. I'll look out for that, and I'm sure probably do a little write-up for our listeners as well. So I'd like to dive into the content of your BICS essay a little bit now, if I may. Sure. So you titled it Beyond the Brain, the Survival of Human Consciousness After Permanent Bodily Death. Could you outline your thoughts for us about the relationship between the brain and consciousness, and where you think the current paradigm's going wrong in its characterization of that relationship?
Well, the current paradigm, if you were to talk to almost anybody, let's say 95% of the people working in the field of neuroscience, they would all take as an assumption that the brain produces consciousness. One research that I talked to, or one philosopher said, the brain produces consciousness just like the stomach produces digestion. And I think that that's not correct. I drew in my essay upon the work of William James, who's one of the really considered the father of American psychology, one of the greatest thinkers the United States has ever produced. And he gave a lecture back in about 1897 talking about survival after death. And he said, maybe the way to think of it isn't so much that the brain produces consciousness, like a radio transmitter produces a radio signal. Maybe the brain operates more like he didn't have radio receivers in his era. He described it as a filter, that the brain receives consciousness and filters it down. That if we were all fully conscious, why we'd be experiencing cosmic consciousness all the time, meaning we'd be aware of everything at once, which is impossible for any human being to sustain. So in order for us to survive, the brain narrows our consciousness down to the things that are basically required for our survival. As a result, we miss out on a lot. For example, the kind of work you do, mediumship, most people are too busy, with bread and butter issues to do that, but it's accessible, it's available, and there's a lot of research that supports this idea. For example, psychedelic drugs. People on psychedelics have very, very rich conscious experiences full of colors and lights and sounds and meaning. Everything is much more meaningful. And yet the brain quiets down during a psychedelic experience for the most part. And it's when the brain quiets down that you're actually able to open up to more consciousness.
Yes, and that William James' idea of filtration now is, as you've correctly said, getting some evidence for it as well. There are some scientists and philosophers who are tentatively starting to write about and put ideas out there saying that, the brain is not a good machine for looking objectively at what is. It has actually evolved to hunt, essentially, to focus on targets to acquire and tools to use and obstacles to avoid. And so if there's any aspects of reality that don't immediately fall into that life-saving or life-preserving primary function, then they are not attended to by the brain, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. And now, the way our lifestyles are changing, our brains may also be slightly evolving to become aware of different things. Especially empathy is a big one at the minute. People are writing a lot more about empathy and awe and wonder. And now that most of us have the basic need of not being eaten by predators met, our brains are starting to close down and move in different ways to see what else we can do. And as you say, psychedelic research is really interesting because it's like the more inhibited our brain is, the more we see, the more we experience. And I really believe as well with mediumship it's more about, with consciousness, we've been a bit wrong about what we can pay attention to. You know, we think we can just pay attention to what is relevant to our body, relevant to our survival, relevant to this present moment or to the recent past. But with psychedelics and even with mediumship, it's the things that we can be conscious of that are starting to really bring into question, you know, this material and physicalist explanation of the relationship between consciousness and the brain, because it is very hard to understand where the visions and psychedelic trips and experiences come from, and they seem to be laden with meaning, and they seem to have like an animus of their own. And likewise with mediumship, you know, I have no business as a medium knowing the things that I know about people from long ago, from different countries and different places, and yet the information comes and there it is, and it's true and it's accurate. And so I think that there's a huge area for research as to why can we be aware of things that we have no business knowing about in terms of its relationship to our body.
Well, and there's also the whole field of remote viewing, which suggests that people can access information anywhere in time and space, even on distant planets.
Thank you so much for joining me here on the Art and Science of Mediumship. I really hope you enjoyed the free version of this interview. If you would like to keep on watching, please subscribe for £9 per month or £90 per year. There's lots of benefits to subscribing to the Art and Science of Mediumship, including the fact that I choose one lucky winner every month to receive a complimentary mediumship reading with me, totally free of charge, included with your subscription. Thanks so much for supporting my work and supporting my writing, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the interview.